Then he got into it with Fox News' Peter Doocy, who is a true journalist. That we really have. We tried to get him on the show. I think we got to try. We've got to get this guy on the show. I don't know that he does interviews, but he's just doing a bang up job of holding this administration to something. Like there's one guy trying to do it. And here he is going after Biden, and Biden once again saying he didn't say the thing that he said, and we all heard him say it.
Are you worried that other leaders in the world are going to start to doubt that America is back if some of these big things that you say on the world stage keep getting walked back?
What's getting walked back?
It made it sound like, just in the last couple days, it sounded like you told U.S. troops they were going to Ukraine. It sounded like you said it was possible the U.S. would use a chemical weapon, and it sounded like you were calling for regime change in Russia, and we know
none of the three occurred.
None of the three occurred?
None of the three.
Mr. President?
You interpret the language that way. I was talking to the troops. We're talking about helping train the troops that are the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland. That's what the context. I sat there with those guys for a couple hours. That's what we talked about.
So when you said you're going to see when you're there, you were not intending to
I was referring to meeting with and talking with the Ukrainian troops that were in Poland.
And when you said a chemical weapon use by Russia would trigger a response in kind.
It will trigger a significant response.
What does that mean?
I'm not going to tell you. Why would I tell you? You got to be silly.
The world wants to know.
The world wants to know a lot of things. I'm not telling them what the response would be. Then Russia knows the response.
Okay, so he did, and I try to give him credit when he's roughly coherent and everything else. At the end there, he said what I just said earlier, which is that you don't just tell the enemy what you're going to do. When you're in war, you don't just put it all out there. Guys, if you do this, then we do this. If this happens, then this happens. If this, then this. You don't do that. So I will give him some room to work there. Now, the problem here is that he partly, not only does he just muddle through all of these things and then say these things and then his people have to apologize and the media runs cover, but he also kind of doesn't know what he's saying. So Peter Doocy asked the right question there, especially about the troops. He said to our troops, what you are going to see when you are there.
And you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people standing in the middle of front of a damn tank.
Now he's backtracking and saying, oh no, what I meant was I was talking to our U.S. troops who will be training Ukrainian troops in Poland or something like that. And it's like, I don't know, maybe that actually is what he meant. Maybe he doesn't even know exactly what he said. Who the hell knows? The point is that to believe any of this at this point is tough, let's say, at best. It is tough. And if I haven't laid out a case for you, now we're going to really slam the door on this freaking thing, because let's talk about sanctions again. You may remember at the beginning of this whole war, this slow motion war that's going on, where remember for weeks at first they kept saying, Putin's going to do it. He's on his way. Some stuff's going to happen. We'll see what we're going to do. And, how can we figure out how to deter him? And it's a whole big thing, right? We're going to see what we can do and sanctions and deterrence and blah, blah, blah. Here's a spectacular compilation of the confusion over what sanctions do and why we would drop sanctions on Russia. And you tell me, I don't want to color your opinion on this. You tell me if the messaging from this administration makes any sense.
Sanctions never deter. You keep talking about that.
The purpose of the sanctions has always been and continues to be deterrence.
The purpose of the sanctions, in the first instance, is to try to deter Russia from going to war.
The president believes that sanctions are intended to deter.
They're meant to prevent and deter a large-scale invasion.
We want them to have a deterrent effect.
The sanctions are designed in the first instance to try to deter Russia from taking further aggression.
As well as our efforts to both try to deter Russia through sanctions.
If you pull the trigger on that deterrent, well, then it doesn't exist anymore as a deterrent.
Joe, those are all people who work for you. Are they all liars or idiots?